to me, any rational person looking at Trump can see a guy that's mentally deranged, lacking any moral capacity. I mean, he pretty messed up dude. I mean, by any rational standards, whether you were white supremacist or a black revolutionary, you would say he's pretty fucked up. Okay, and if I was a white supremacist, I wouldn't want him running my business. Okay, just from a rational standpoint. But I'm struck with how many white people have tendency in the media, in the mainstream media, establishment media, I'll use that term, to rationalize him in some way, to try to say, no, he ain't messed up. See, you got to understand this other stuff. And it got me to thinking that I wanted to ask you this as a clinical psychologist. It seems to me that us personally, white folks generally, have the same relationship with Trump or MAGA America as individuals who have a relationship with a dysfunctional or in a relationship with a dysfunctional person. Rather than separate from it, get away from it, you try to rationalize that it's not. Now, Larry had a great metaphor that everybody would understand, or analogy that everybody would understand. But I don't know if we're doing GP this morning since we're doing this on Sunday and not Saturday. But Charles, I'd like for you to either using Larry's analogy or something else, explain why we don't get it, because we are in this dysfunctional relationship with white people, and we try to rationalize the absurd behavior that we're looking at rather than call it absurd and say we need to get the hell out of here. Even if we can't physically leave, we need to be emotionally and intellectually and culturally someplace else. And that's them. That ain't us. Or as Kendrick Lamar say, they ain't like us. Okay? And we got to learn to be okay with that. But go ahead. I'm sorry, my brother.
And so, I mean, in short, I will, to start off that response for you, I'll use the metaphor that you introduced me to. We lions, they hyenas.
Right.
First and foremost. And we got to grow into that, right? We the kings, we ain't scavengers. They scavengers. And so, and it ain't no honor among them. They like literally thieves. Ain't no honor among thieves, right? So we struggle with that fundamental premise. We struggle with it for a couple of different reasons. Um, and that is, again, we still have, the vestiges of 400 years of chattel slavery. And so we still, as Malcolm would say, what's the matter, boss? We still sick. And so you call that you can call that Stockholm syndrome. You can call that identification with the aggressor. Um, um, it's the trauma response, trauma bonding. So for us, you could call it that. Similarly for white folks, you got mad you still have identification with the aggressor, and then you also have just a mass denial, right? And projection, because the thing with them is that they've always, and it's almost white folks categorically, is that there's a degree to which we're their emotional surrogate. So
Go explain that. I get what you just said, but you need to go. You need to
that
dig a little deeper on that
theme.
yes,
That is the theme that is inculcated through their entire hierarchy from baby to a 150-year-old male. So please.
And so, and then, and so in order to appreciate that emotional surrogate piece, then we also got to add projection, right? So we got denial and projection. That's what we're dealing with white folks. So in our, you know, hundreds of year relationship with white folks, there has not been a time where we have just randomly, you know, aggressed. We have not just randomly attacked white folks. Never. Not here, not on the continent, not nowhere. We just ain't never randomly done that. But they have not just done that to us. They've done it to wherever there are indigenous populations. This is what we do. I mean, this is what they do, which means that that's who they are. And if we kind of borrow from, again, we go to, Sheikh Anta Diop and like kind of real quickly, Larry, Attorney Fields, always, we always know that we're always, every month, every Saturday, every Sunday, whenever it is that we're talking, is Black History Month. And so our points of reference are typically going to be from our sage scholars
That's
in
correct.
politics and whoever it was that brought value to our
And
community.
you know what's amazing,
Um,
that we've never had to make that declaration formally, but that's who it is. I mean, that's
we
you
just
know,
do it.
we've never had
Yeah,
to make that a
that's
formal
just
declaration.
what we do.
That's it
Yes.
there.
And
But
so uh, and one of the major theses of Dr. Diop is the two cradle theory. We, coming from the southern cradle, which is Africa, the origins of man, we are a collective and a cooperative people. And there's a degree to which you could say we are a collective and cooperative people and a welcoming people. This was because not only are we cooperative, we're incorporative. Um, we like other people. We're willing to give other people the nod, almost to a fault, which is why we got this
No,
relationship we got
to a fault.
to a fault. This is
to
why
a
we got this
fault, clearly
relationship
to a
with white
fault,
folks,
clearly
right?
to a fault.
And so we come from we come from the southern cradle. White folks are and let me throw some Nation of Islam on you. So the story that the nation gives you about Yaku and the creation of the white man, you know, the symbolism of it is crazy. At least it's crazy to me. But let's talk about the truth of it. So what happened in what we call Europe is that Black folks, after successive uh, migrations from the continent into the world, got trapped in what we call Europe in a glacial period. And over a course of 20 to 40,000 years, we were demelanated because it was a process of adaptation and accommodation. Our melanated skin was preventing the production of vitamin D and other vitamins, internally derived vitamins and trace minerals, um, because of the lack of sunlight. So over that time, we lost our melanin. And so what emerged coming out of the glacial period was white folks, right? Now, the Nation of Islam has another story about that, but that's fundamentally, once you kind of deal with their symbolism and their actual myth, it's kind of true. And so coming out of that harsh climate where there is nothing, it's barren, you get a selfish and violent and militaristic person. Why? Because there's limited resources. And that's why we have a economic system that is kind of predicated on that. And even when there isn't a lack of resources, they create a lack of resources because that's how they relate to resources and other people, right? So That's how all of that stuff exists. And so they are a selfish individual people. We like to think that all white folks stick together. That is not true. Uh, and it, it is kind of amazing that for as hooked on gangster movies as we are, that we still think that all white folks stick together. So our favorite movie, you know, easily on any rating, a top two movie. At at, at worst, The Godfather is the second greatest movie ever. Otherwise, it's typically the number one. And it's all about what? White folks not getting along. And that's who they are. And that's what is going on in the Ukraine right now is white folks not getting along. Because in this scenario, um, the United States actually is Barzini, and the Ukraine is Tattaglia, and Putin is the Don. And Tattaglia got to go because he's doing the bidding of Barzini because he's bringing a threat and harm to the Russian border. We in the scenario are who we are, subjugated Negroes living living in the United States, siding with the aggressor. We don't have a fight in this. Now, if this was 1960s and we were doing conventional war, then we probably would have a fight in this, and we would probably be on the right side of it because we would be seeing a disproportionate number of black men going to fight in Ukraine, just like we saw a disproportionate number of black men going to Vietnam to fight that imperialistic war, in which we, the black community, in the main, were wrong there.
I was going to
Because
say, Charles.
again, we sided with the white folks.